Hey everybody, this is Russ from Metro Game Core. So the other day I posted about new colors that are available for the Miyoo Mini. Right now there's a transparent black and a transparent blue version available for sale. And so I immediately bought both, but the next day I got an email from keepretro.com. And they said, hey, we want to send you the black transparent Miyoo Mini. And so despite already having a couple on the way, I thought, well, they can probably ship it faster via DHL this way. And then I can do a quick video about it and then also give this unit away. And so that's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to take a look at the transparent black Miyoo Mini, and then at the end I'll also give one of these away to a lucky viewer. Now before we get into that, let's talk about the device itself. It comes with the same carrying case that is with the other two colors. And like with all new Miyoo Minis, this is the version 2 of that console. And this is what it looks like, and I gotta say, it's pretty dang sharp. It's not super transparent, there's a bit of opaqueness to it, but all the same I think it looks really nice. On the back you can actually see the battery, and it looks like they've also added a sticker here as well. This isn't present on the other two version 2s that I had already reviewed. And this also gives you a feel for how transparent the plastic is here by looking at the battery cover. You can also see between the two shoulder buttons is the little rumble motor. Now the Miyoo Mini sticker that's on the back here looks pretty bad. I didn't think it was terrible with the other colors, but with this one it just kind of looks really cheap. But there are third-party stickers that you can buy for this device. I'll leave a link to the Etsy store here in the video description. But for all intents and purposes, this looks and feels exactly like any other Miyoo Mini. In fact, the texture of the plastic here feels about just as smooth as any of the other colors. And just to check, here's the original gray color, and yeah, I can't really tell a difference between the smoothness of these two. And really, other than the shell color and the buttons for this model in particular, the only other difference that I see is that the D-pad on the black version is a little bit darker. But in all other regards, the feel of the buttons, the size of the device overall, even the screen itself, they're exactly the same. And that's great because I'm a huge fan of this new version 2 of Miyoo Mini. I feel like I've done like 100 videos about this thing, but I'm honestly genuinely excited about it. This is the first device I've seen under $60 that checks just a ton of boxes for me. And so yeah, I'm genuinely excited about the Miyoo Mini, and I kind of like making videos about it too. Now the Keep Retro version of this device here does come with an SD card as well, and it's actually already inserted into the device. And let's take a look, and yes, it's a generic 32GB SD card here. So let's go ahead and boot it up and see what firmware we're working with here. And as expected, it's running the stock Miyoo Mini firmware. So first thing I want to do is go into the settings and see what version of the firmware we're working with. And as you can see here, it's running the January version, which means it will need to be upgraded to the April version, which I show in my previous Miyoo Mini video, which I'll also have linked down below. And it's a very easy process, but if you want to use Onion, that's what you're going to have to do. While we're in here, let's go into the game section and see what games we have. And yeah, this is a dead ringer to the stock version available on AliExpress. The NES catalog is full of Japanese games, which is kind of weird, but all of the other systems that are available on here are the American or Western versions. So in general, if you just want to buy this thing and play a bunch of games, other than with NES games, you'll have almost a complete catalog for each of these retro systems. Now here's a quick look at the other color that I have. This is the white version. As you can see, it has the same colored buttons, but again, the D-pad is darker on the black version. Now on my white model, I'm running the MiniUI custom firmware. And luckily, this one can actually work without having to update the firmware on your device. So I can just swap out these SD cards and I can jump right into MiniUI. And that's what I'm going to do here instead of updating the firmware real quick. But of course, if you want to get the full spectrum between Onion and MiniUI and all the other things I talked about in my last video, be sure to check out that video because it does have instructions on how to set that up. I'm going to increase the brightness by holding it down start and pressing R2 a few times. Okay, so now that we're in MiniUI, I do want to talk about a couple changes I've made since the last video. The first one here is that I put both Game Boy and Game Boy Color into the same folder. And all I really did here is just change the name of the folder, and then just put Game Boy and Game Boy Color ROMs in the same folder. Because they run off of the same emulator, they can discern between the two, and so if I open up a Game Boy game, it'll be nice and green. But if I open up a Game Boy Color game, it'll launch appropriately. Now the same can be done with Sega Genesis, which is what I've done here as well. Because it uses the same emulator, I've put in my Genesis, 32X, and Sega CD games all into one folder. But as you can see here, BC Raiders is a 32X game, works just fine. And same thing with Sega CD. And I gotta say, every time I see that Sega CD logo, it just fills me with so much nostalgia. Anyway, instructions on how to set all of this up is actually in the MiniUI README file. So all you have to do is download MiniUI and it'll walk you through the rest of the process. And so in addition to my Sega CD games and Sega 32X games, I did add a couple extra systems as well. And again, these are all available through the MiniUI website. But as you can see here, I have the TurboGrafx-16 folder. And much like with Sega CD, I also put the TurboGrafx CD files in here too. So I can kind of jump between those two systems while keeping the folder nice and clean. And finally, one other thing I did, and this one's called an extra, and that is that I added some arcade games via Final Burn Alpha. Now I put an X in front of the name just so it would show up in the bottom, because otherwise it would be the very top menu, and I didn't really want that. The only downside of adding arcade games, at least right now, to the Final Burn Alpha folder is that it won't parse out the full arcade name, it'll just show the name of the file. And so if you know the MAME naming conventions, it's fine, but if you don't, then it might be a little confusing. For example, AVSP is Aliens vs. Predator. And the game runs just fine, but there are going to be some arcade games that won't run at full speed. Honestly, if you want to play a lot of arcade, I would recommend Onion instead, but it was kind of fun to experiment to see what would work. And as of making this video today, they added the Pico 8 emulator as well. And I think that's a great addition to this little device and MiniUI. Okay, and last thing I want to talk about, and something I really didn't expect about the transparent black color, is that the light bleeding on this is pretty dang bad. As you can see here, it is clearly visible from any angle. Not only when you're looking at it from the top, but when you're looking at the device face on. And unfortunately, even on the sides and back, it just kind of bleeds through. And so I think that maybe in the future, I'm actually going to go in, open this thing up, and put in some electrical tape to dampen out that color. For comparison, here is the white model here, and yes, it still has some light bleeding, especially on the top around the buttons. And that light can get pretty obnoxious at nighttime. But as you can see, the transparent black one is just a whole lot brighter. So that's kind of one bummer among many things that I really like about this device. And so I think in the end, this probably won't be my ideal nighttime device. In that regard, I think I'm probably going to keep the white one as my primary by the bedside. And so yeah, that's about it for this video. And so while I'm playing one of my favorite Game Boy Advance games here, this one's called Zoo with 3 O's, let's talk a little bit about that giveaway. And I'm going to keep it super simple. All you have to do is click on the link that's in the video description. It'll take you to a page, you just fill out your information. And then after a week, I will randomly select a winner, and then I'll send that person an email. And I'll open this up to the entire world. Since this thing is so light, I think shipping isn't going to be too bad. And again, this giveaway is for the black transparent model that you see here. So let me know what you think in the comments below. How do you like this color? And as soon as I get the transparent blue one, I'll probably do a quick video to show that one off too. Big thanks to KeepRetro.com for sending this out for the giveaway and for the review. And thank you for sticking around to watch this video. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and be sure to like and subscribe if you found this helpful. And we will see you next time. Happy gaming.